Hello and welcome to another episode of Pro Tips with Studio Pros. Today we're going to learn how to prepare your session to send it out and get mixed. At Studio Pros, we have some of the top mixing engineers in the business. But whether you're sending them to us or you're sending them to a different mixing engineer, these tips will still apply. Sometimes when you're producing a track and you're getting all excited, it's easy to mislabel things or not label them or have hidden tracks. So the first thing we're going to do is go through, unhide all your tracks, make sure that everything that you want to send to the mixing engineer is there. You're also going to want to go through every track and make sure that whatever you named it makes sense and is going to be understandable for someone who hasn't seen the tracks before. For example, here I have Jake Pre, Jake Chorus, Nick 1, Nick 2. That doesn't really help us that much, so let's rename them to lead verse, lead second verse, lead pre-chorus, and so on and so forth. If you do have some MIDI tracks, it's nice to be extra safe and print those MIDI tracks to audio so that nothing gets lost in export. If you export your files with effects, it's nearly impossible to remove those effects in the mixing stage. So it's best to keep things simple and then give your mixing engineer direction so that they can get the right sound. Sometimes what you can do is send them a rough demo mix of your entire song so that they can hear what you were going for in certain sections and then replicate it in a more professional manner when they're mixing it. Similarly, you can also send some reference tracks of songs you like the sound of so that your mixing engineer can have something to compare it to when they're mixing your track. Something I like to do is go through every single file and fade in and fade out so that there's no bad starts or stops. Any clicks or pops are going to be really difficult to deal with in the mix, so make sure that you don't have any of that. If you're recorded with EQ or compression going in, we can't really change that, but it would be best at this point to disable all plugins and also disable all automation. Those things are still better done by a professional mixing engineer. Once you've done these steps, listen to the entire song and make sure nothing's completely out of whack or that some files got hidden by accident or are muted. Once you've named everything, remove the plugins, removed automation, make sure that there were no clicks or pops in your song. You can check so that it sounds still like your song. There's no big missing pieces or there's no parts that are there that are not supposed to be there. And you can begin to export your tracks. You can select all your tracks individually or just selecting them all like this and export them. When you export them, make sure you use 24-bit WAV files and that your sample rate matches whatever you recorded in. Once you've exported your tracks, a very important step is to take all the files you just exported and drag them into a brand new session. Then listen through and make sure everything is still lined up correctly. Something that's really important is that even if you have a file that only has audio at the very end of the song, it still has to start from zero. You'll have a lot of silence until the part starts, but that's what's necessary so that the mixing engineer will have a version of the song where all the tracks are lined up from the very start. Now that you've finally exported your tracks, just select them all, right-click or control-click on a Mac, and press compress. On a PC, you'll right-click or control-click and click archive. Once you have that zip file ready, you can send it to our Studio Pros engineers. And here's a little bonus tip. You may have heard people talk about stems or mixing stems or stem mixing. What this is instead of breaking down every single track individually and removing all the sounds that you had on there, the effects, you can actually keep your effects and then group them into subdivisions like keys, background harmonies, lead vocals, drums, bass, guitars, and let's say you break it down into those 5 categories, then your mixing engineer just plays around with those sounds instead of starting from scratch and building all the effects back to whatever sound you're looking for. This can be helpful if you're a producer that has a really good grasp on the sound they want and just needs a mixing engineer to kind of piece those big puzzle pieces together. Well, I hope you guys learned something. Now you know how to prepare your songs for a mix. Please like and subscribe below. Let us know what you thought of the video, and let us know if you have any ideas for future videos. This has been Pro Tips with Studio Pros. We look forward to receiving your song soon.